Ghosts of Harrenhal. My name's Simon.
And I'm Mackelly.
Thank you for joining us for episode 137 of our chapter-by-chapter book review of A Song of Ice and Fire by George Martin. Today we'll be discussing chapter 63 of A Clash of Kings, that's Dany 5.
And what we're going to do is we're going to chat about the chapter and try not to spoil any future plot points for you. And hopefully we'll provide you some entertainment along the way.
We'll summarise what happened, discuss our thoughts on it, provide some useful background, compare it to the television show, indulge in a little pedantry, and cover some relevant news and listener correspondence. Be sure to check out the show notes, they'll provide some additional information that will be particularly handy if you're not reading along. How are you, Mackelly?
I am doing all right. A little bit worn out. I've been running around a lot today, but hey, it's...
He's red in the face, listeners. He's red in the face.
Am I? It's a beautiful spring day. It's the first day of the Masters today.
Oh, yes, yeah.
As well as the opening day of Major League Baseball. Not that anyone who's from Western Pennsylvania cares about that, because our team, the Pittsburgh Pirates, will soon be in the basement within the next week or two, where we will stay.
But right now, they're tied for first place.
That's right. Unless they've lost today. They did play already. I haven't paid attention to how they did. But otherwise, I'm all right. I appreciate you waiting so long to get started this evening. I forgot to factor in the fact that Molly was driving us to practice, and so it took a good half amount of time longer than had I been driving. So
because she obeys the rules of the road.
Yes, right.
Well, it's funny you should mention the golf, because that's put me in mind of Rob's mocking of our subjects that we chat about, because I have a good Rob story for you.
Oh, okay. I love good Rob
which
stories.
Involves a swimming pool, which is rather perfect as well. So where Rob lives in Normandy, he has a swimming pool for the guests. So it's bigger than your average, family swimming pool. It's a decent sized pool. And it was drained, and he was cleaning it for the start of the season. So if you imagine a drained swimming pool, it's got a shallow end and a deep end.
Right.
And the slope, as my brother described it, the slope between the shallow end and the deep end, he said, is about the exact limit of what you can run up.
Oh, no. I have a hunch I know where this is going.
So he's scrubbing away down in the deep end, and it starts to snow.
Snow? Oh, jeez.
And he doesn't really pay attention. He just keeps working, and then he's like, all right, I'm finished, and he cannot get out of the pool.
I thought so.
He's running at that thing like Wile E. Coyote, going up and down. So he told us about this on the family call, and I said, Rob, it's a great story. I said, but if you had any commitment to the comedy of this story, you would be making this call from the bottom of the pool.
Yes, you should be.
I've got like 2% battery left. Send help.
Someone save me.
He's hollering for help. But it's like 200 yards from his home, so nobody could hear him.
So how did he finally get out?
You know what? I stopped listening to his story, so I don't know how he got out. I just imagine he's still there.
I assume he's still there.
I would imagine he went to the side and sort of like put his hands on the side and sort of pulled himself up that way.
Right, yes. Yeah. So I guess next time he'll bring a rope, like he'll tie a rope somewhere.
Yeah. But weirdly, my brother-in-law, so my sister's husband, Mark, he had a similar story. So my sister Sarah gets a call from her husband, and he says, "Hey, can you come and get me?" And he gives an address, but he's like very specific. He said, "Come." He said, "It's a square. Come to the western side where the railings are." And she's like, "Okay." And he said, "And bring step ladders." She's like,
multiple step ladders.
Yes, a step ladder.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah. And so she goes, and what he's done is he's walking along, and there's a park to his right, and he really needs the bathroom. He's looking, and he sees a bathroom inside the park.
I'm laughing already, and I don't know where this is going yet.
And he looks along, and both directions, this railing just goes for a long way. But there's a bench, so he can stand on the bench, hop the railings, go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
So he just does it. Just he's a man of action. He just jumps the fence. And he goes to the bathroom, comes out of the bathroom, discovers that this is a private part with a lock, for which you need a key, and on the inside, no bench.
So he got stuck
she has
on
to
the inside.
Come to the bench and feed the ladders over the top of the bench so he can climb out.
Oh man!
How
about that?
I almost lost 2 in 1 week.
In the same week, Rob in the pool and Mark in the park. I see your notes.
Yes, Rob in the pool, Mark in the park.
Oh man, that's good stuff. Those are good stories.
I know.
I like it. Yes.
The family call is never dull.
No, I guess. Well, it is until the last 5 minutes, and then when everybody's
you are correct, sir.
Everybody's going.
Everyone suddenly remembers. Oh yeah, I was trapped in a swimming pool.
Oh crap!
All right, we have got a lot of notes. So we should
do.
Get back to business. How did we leave Daenerys Stormborn Targaryen? It has been eons, but last we saw of Daenerys, she was entering and then escaping the House of the Undying, home of the Warlocks of Qarth, with the help of Drogon, who lit the place up, if you'll allow it. She left with a bunch more questions than she got answers to. Mackelly, why don't we give the summary of this one?
All right. Daenerys has decided that enough is enough with Qarth. She's gained enemies, and her so-called friends are only after her dragons. She's headed to the docks to find a ship out of here. She eschews the finery she's been wearing in favor of her Dothraki gear. They already think her a savage, so why not? Jiqui braids her hair and adds a bell for her first battle won. Dany's not sure, but Ser Jorah and her bloodriders don't comment, so...
They head through the seedier parts of town, and Dany sees no love for her in the people's eyes. She's been shielded from this by riding around in Xaro's palanquin, but now she's riding her silver. They head to the docks. Xaro has warned her that Pyat Pri wants revenge and is gathering the remaining warlocks to confront her. She reminds Xaro of his contempt for their skills previously, but Xaro lists several recent magical events that have made him less sure.
Xaro tries one last time to propose, but Dany is aware of his true motives and refuses. He gets cold and tells her to leave. She feels the timing is right anyway. Her people needed to recover from the desert crossing, but now that they have, they're getting unruly. Opinion is divided on where they should go. Jorah wants to head east, away from her enemies. Her bloodriders are willing to recross the Red Waste to get back to the Dothraki Sea. She toys with the idea of heading back into the Red Waste to Vaes Teloro, but nothing seems quite right.
Xaro offers her ships in return for a dragon. She refuses, comparing her dragon's worth to that of 1/3 of all the ships in the world. They speak no more. His seneschal brings her increasingly cold missives. Leave, return the gifts you accepted in bad faith, etc. The warlocks whispered of 3 treasons, for blood, for gold, for love. She thinks Miri is the first of these, and wonders if Pyat and Xaro are the second and third, then discounts the idea as they don't fit the bill.
As they near the docks, she asks Ser Jorah about another of the things she heard in the House of the Undying. The dragon has 3 heads. He points out that her sigil is a 3-headed dragon, crafted for Aegon and his sister wives, Visenya and Rhaenys. Dany says Rhaegar was with a woman and a baby, and said, "His is the song of ice and fire, the prince that was promised," and told her to name him Aegon. Jorah confirms that this all fits, but the promise was broken when the Lannisters murdered baby Aegon.
They reach the bustling docks. The Dothraki don't like the smell of the poison water, as they consider the sea. They head to the furthest end of the docks where the non-Qartheen ships dock. She's rebuffed by captain after captain. She's asking a lot, not least passage for fire-breathing dragons. They keep going. Jorah notices that they are being followed and uses a brass mirror to show Dany. The brass seller gets into a haggling war with Dany over the value while she examines the duo on her tail. One is a fat, bald eunuch with brown skin. The other is an older man with long white hair and beard. Only the former is obviously armed, although the latter carries a staff.
As Jorah pays for the brass, a Qartheen thrusts a jeweled box into Dany's hands. She opens it to find what appears to be a beautiful scarab in onyx and emerald. Her first thought is that this will help pay for her ships. But then the scarab moves, and she sees its wicked stinger. She feels pain in her hand as the box flies from it. The old man is there with his staff, and Jorah engages the eunuch as the bloodriders arrive on the scene.
Jorah and the bloodriders are ready to kill the odd couple, but Dany recognizes that they saved her. The old man apologizes to Dany for hurting her. Dany prevails on all to sheathe swords. The splattered manticore on the heel of the staff is the clearest evidence of intent. The eunuch is strong Belwas, and the old man Arstan. Belwas got his name in the fighting pits of Meereen. He always allowed his opponents to cut him before he killed them. His scars suggest that he won a lot of fights. He's a slave to Illyrio Mopatis, sent to find Dany, and Arstan is his squire.
They would have introduced themselves more formally, but weren't sure they'd found the right person. Arstan is Westerosi and knows Ser Jorah. He had seen him almost unseat Jaime Lannister in a tourney and fought with him at Pike. Ser Jorah finds Arstan familiar but can't quite place him. Introductions are made. Belwas offends the Dothraki, but Dany urges peace. She asks what Illyrio wants. They tell her that he wants her and her dragons back in Pentos.
She explains that they have 100 people, more horses, plus the 3 dragons. They've come prepared. They have 3 ships. They confirm that the usurper is dead. 4 kings vie for the throne, and justice is thin on the ground in the 7 kingdoms. She agrees to sail with them, but wants the 3 ships to be renamed Vhagar, Meraxes, and Balerion. She wants everyone to know that the dragons are back.
So much for flying under the radar.
Well, yeah. I think the dragons are pretty much on everyone's radar. At least in Qarth they are.
I guess. She might as well have taken out a billboard. She said she wanted those letters painted like 3 feet high or something like that.
Yes. But the plan, is that they're headed to Pentos to see Illyrio Mopatis, so they're not heading to the 7 kingdoms yet.
Right.
They might be more subtle when they head to Westeros. It's possible.
Right, possibly. Depending on the size of the dragons, I guess.
We're gonna paint the dragon names 10 feet high, but we're gonna land in the middle of the night.
So Dany forgoes her Qarthine garb for the Dothraki clothing, which, I guess she's giving up trying to show the Qarthine that she's more than just a dusty horse lord, which is kind of like the opposite. When she rode into town, she felt inadequate because she was dressed in her Dothraki garb, and everybody was dressed so fancy. And now she's rolling out of town, and she's like, "Forget all your fancy garb. I'm a Dothraki. Hear me roar."
Just to talk about Daenerys' breasts for a second, if we can. It does say in this chapter that her breasts sort of swung free inside her Dothraki clothes, but the Qarthine style was for one of her breasts to be out.
True.
So I'm pretty sure she would feel more confined rather than less confined, to be honest.
I thought that was an odd line of description too, but
So we've had several hints previously that magic is becoming more potent in the world. I'm not sure if Xaro's being completely honest. Obviously, he wants her to leave, and so he played down the threat of the Warlocks, and now he's playing it up, and that could just be because he's changed his mind about Dany.
Right.
But what he's saying fits with some of the other things we've heard, that the Warlocks seem to be able to perform stronger magic than they could do prior to meeting the dragons.
Yeah. We've seen several instances of it. That fire ladder magician in the streets. He's had increased abilities,
and it's not just localized, because we had the same comment in King's Landing,
right? Yeah,
about the
pyromancers
to create wildfire.
Yeah.
So that does worry me for Dany a little bit, because that means that kind of she's cursed wherever she goes. She'll be fortifying the magic of her opponents.
True.
Wherever she goes, maybe not. Maybe it really isn't localized. Maybe just, universally magic is getting more potent. So
I guess she just needs to get some magic on her side.
Good point. I guess she's got dragons.
She does. That's not a bad start. But so speaking of Xaro and what he tells her, he says that Pyat Pri is gathering the remaining warlocks to work ill against her. And of course, knowing what we know now and what we've always assumed about him, is that true, or is that just what he's telling her? We've certainly seen their magic increased since the birth of the dragon, so And he mentions about this woman who had mocked their clothing, the warlock clothing, and so now she can't wear clothes. If she wears clothes, she feels like she's covered in bugs. So imagine what they could do to Dany, who burned down their entire house.
Right.
But I guess we don't know. We don't know what Xaro is being honest about and what he's telling her to stack things in his favor.
Yeah, I mean, obviously he wants her gone, so he's playing up the threats against her. It makes sense that Pyatt is plotting against her. I mean, wouldn't be surprising if he wanted to take revenge for what she did, but maybe one does not know how magic works, so maybe you really have to get close to her. One thing I will say is, isn't a manticore a magical beast? I mean, maybe the assassination attempt here was Pyatt Pri.
Yes.
Because I don't think Emerald and Jade Scarab would come to life and attack her without magic.
Yeah, I actually that was something I was going to ask you later on. Who sent the person that tried to have her killed? Who sent the assassin?
Yeah, I have other ideas about that, so we can still have that conversation.
Okay, good. I was a little bit surprised actually to that she let Pyatt Pri live, knowing that he set her up as he did. Unless he would, he didn't. I'm not aware that he argued this, but I guess he could have argued, I didn't know they were going to do that.
Yeah. I mean, maybe she thought he got his strength from the House of the Undying. Those Undying spirits felt like the warlocks were channeling what they were giving them, and she destroyed them, so maybe she thought he was just a harmless old lunatic.
Yeah, that's possible.
Yeah. So, of the three who met her at Vias Tolero, Qarth, who was kind of like the scariest one in some ways, is the only one who hasn't actively tried to take advantage of her, and in fact has warned her about the fact that others will try to take advantage of her.
Right, and she told her to go to Ashae to find the truth. So she was the first one to say, get out of this city before you can't get out of this city. So either she's playing I think we've had this conversation last time we met Qarth. She's either playing the really long game, trying to get Dany to Ashae for whatever purpose she has, or maybe she's just really looking out for Dany's best interests. I don't know. Yeah. So far she hasn't tried to overtly take advantage of her yet.
We'll be right back.
Hello, friends. Are you ready to make some unforgettable memories? Well, if so, consider the Marriott Bonvoy program. Discover the perfect destination for your summer getaway and unlock exclusive deals on luxurious accommodations. With our affiliate partnership, you'll enjoy unbeatable savings and a seamless booking experience. Don't let summer slip away. Visit Marriott Bonvoy today and make this vacation season one for the books. Use our Ghosts of Harrenhal affiliate page to check it all out and buy Bonvoy points or give some as a gift. The link to our page is in the show notes.
Yep. So the magics that Xaro lists include the wife of Mathos Malarowan, who you just mentioned, can no longer wear clothes because she mocked a warlock's robes.
Yep.
Ghost grass is growing in the gardens of Gehain. Blind Sebastian, eater of eyes, can see again. Who would have thought that would work? And glass candles are burning in the house of Urathon Nightwalk, and they haven't burned there in 100 years.
Yeah, so there's I was looking for background info. There's not a lot of background info on much of these at all. They're pretty much just here to add some examples of unique things that are going on here. But Mathos Malarowan, we did hear of him before. He was one of the Pureborn that Dany bribed back when she was asking them for help with the ships. He did nothing, of course, but that's how we've heard his name before. And the ghost grass. So Jorah told us. I said Jorah. It sounded like Sir Jorah, but Jorah told us about ghost grass when he and Dany first saw the Dothraki Sea in that chapter when she rode in, and then Viserys rode in after her, and they got into a big fight. It's if you remember, it's really tall grass that spreads and overwhelms other plants, and currently it's mostly in the Shadowlands of eastern Essos, but the Dothraki believe that it will one day cover the world. So I wonder if this mention of ghost grass growing in the gardens of Gehane might be, its presence there indicating an end of days type situation going on.
Interesting. So it's dandelions, right? I mean, it's not that magical. You should see my yard.
It's in my yard. And it takes over everything.
It does. The world is going to be covered in them.
It's clover.
So her welcome is well and truly run out in Qarth. The Tourmaline brothers have threatened her with expulsion or want her gone. The Guild of Spicers are threatening her with death. Xaro is saying that he's doing all he can to keep the 13 from joining in. But
saying that he's doing that.
Yeah. It doesn't really matter at this point. When this many groups want you out, you better leave.
I guess so. But, it got me wondering if maybe all the guidance that he's given her, such as, he's the one that told her who to bribe from the Pureborn, maybe that's super offensive to the Pureborn, and they would have been willing to help her had she not gone and bribed some of the members.
They pocketed the bribes and then were outraged.
Right. So maybe he's been intentionally trying to make her fail so that she would become more reliant upon him. But I will say, in Zora's defense, she's really offered nothing tangible in return for any of the favors that she's been asking of anybody in this city.
No, but it's it's definitely a two-way thing. He wants something from her. She's not willing to give it. No, now he's withdrawing the favors he was giving her.
Right. Yes.
I can't really blame either of them for that.
Exactly.
She did not want his advances, and he wanted only her dragon.
I agree.
So, a question for you. Has Daenerys earned her jangly bell that's being braided into her hair? This is a sign that you've won a battle. Has she?
The bell, the event that gets her the bell is that Jiqui gives her credit for burning down the House of the Undying. Right. But if I were to give her a bell, it would be for the destruction of Miri Mazdur.
Well, that was a old lady who was a slave.
Well, yes. I'm not saying it was quite
the heroic act, there, right? Daenerys.
But she did vanquish that enemy who killed Drogo and basically caused the breakup of Drogo's Khalasar. So, is this sort of victory over her enemy? But
my question is it Daenerys or is it Drogon? I mean, Drogon is the one who got her out of there. I mean, but I guess she's always going to be a slight female and he's always going to be a fire-breathing dragon. Typically, when they're working in conjunction, he'll do most of the heavy lifting when it comes to killing people, I would think.
That's a good point. If she was on his back and he was a large fire-breathing dragon, and together they take out 10,000 soldiers in a battle, technically all that she would have done is, Jacaris and point in the direction.
Now I've got this vision of Balerion reading the newspaper in King's Landing and going, Aegon wins another fight? Really?
Oh, conqueror are you, huh?
What am I? Chopped liver?
Let's see you conquer this area without me.
I'm staying home till I get my due.
That's right. Dragons go on strike.
I love it.
But ultimately, all this causes Dany to be fleeing again, which, as she puts it, I think it's her thoughts are, basically her whole life was one long flight. She and Viserys were always one step ahead of the usurper's hired knives, which of course is true. She really has been running since before she was born. Her mother fled from King's Landing to Dragonstone, and she has been on a constant flee ever since. But I did wonder about that phrasing, one step ahead of the usurper's hired knives. I wondered how many of those usurper's hired knives were real and how many might have been the imagination of her increasingly paranoid brother.
Well, yeah, but I mean, we've seen her survive 2 assassination attempts already.
We have.
But for every one you survive, 10 might have come close without you ever noticing, you know?
Well, yeah. I was just thinking, we saw King Robert make the decision to have Dany killed at that small council meeting, and it didn't seem like that was something that was done on a regular basis. Like, okay, let's go get her again.
I'll agree with that. I think probably she was pursued from Dragonstone, but I think once she arrived in Essos, she was left alone until Robert grew angry and sent the assassins after her. So I think probably you're right. But of course, the thing about her protectors is they have no way to know that.
Right. Yeah, they don't.
They've got to err on the side of caution. They've got to keep her moving.
That's true. So it might not just be that Viserys was overly paranoid. It might just be that they needed, in order to stay alive because they were so vulnerable, needed to be overly cautious.
We'll be right back.
This episode is sponsored by Audible. To get a free audiobook, or 2 if you're an Amazon Prime member, go to our exclusive URL, audibletrial.com/ghostsharrenhal. You can find the link in our show notes.
Given Viserys' personality, it probably behooved him to keep moving. Because
that's what it was.
After a couple of months with Viserys as a house guest, you'd be like, ooh, I think I hear assassins.
Boy, it'd be a real shame if anybody knew that Viserys Targaryen was here. Right here in this house.
Yeah, so in this chapter we rehash some of the scenes from the previous chapter when she was in the House of the Undying. The focus seems to be on seeing her brother Rhaegar with his baby boy. And the vision obviously seems to put a lot of importance to this. This child is very important to the story. The child is his is the Song of Ice and Fire. What's the book called? This is clearly
right. Yeah,
he's going to be a central character of the book. But the child is named Aegon in the dream, and that fits. That was the name of Rhaegar's son. He was called Aegon. Yep. But that's where we had a problem here, because that son is very much dead at the hands of Gregor Clegane in the Second King's Landing.
Right.
So that only leaves 2 possibilities that I can see. That some legerdemain was pulled to trick Clegane into murdering some other baby. Because he was only a baby, so visual recognition would be difficult, because babies all look the same.
Babies look like babies for the most part.
Exactly, yeah. And Aegon was in some way spirited away. Or the second one is that Rhaegar had another son. Or I have a second and a half, let's call this idea 2.5. He had another daughter. Because coming back to the dragon has 3 heads, his first 2 children were called Aegon and Rhaenys.
Right.
So if he had another daughter, if he called that daughter Visenya, he would have recaptured the original 3 Targaryens, the conquerors of Westeros.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, so let's go through those, if you'll hang with me.
I will.
So for number 1, so this is Aegon gets spirited away. It seems like if that was so, we would have heard some rumour of it. If that child had been...
Right.
We've heard nothing. Now, obviously, they'd want to keep it quiet. And also, if you're saving one child, why not save them both? The tricky part about that was Rhaenys was old enough to be recognisable. She wasn't a baby. So that one is more difficult. So maybe you sacrifice her. But you might have taken them to Dragonstone to be with their grandmother and their uncle and aunt. Uncle and soon-to-be-born aunt. It seems an awfully big secret to have survived this long without any whisper of it coming. I mean, we haven't heard it even from Varys.
Yeah. You'd think Varys would know if that were the case.
Of course, Varys isn't a POV character, so we'd only know it from Varys if he told someone.
Yes, and why would he tell King Robert that because or the Lannisters, because both of them
Right.
were heavily involved in the death of the two children. So
Right. So, all right, what about the second one? So, the timeline is Rhaegar died before his children. So if he did have another child and it was called Aegon, that would mean you have two sons called Aegon in the style of George Foreman.
I was thinking that same thing. Yes, if you already had one, because if Rhaegar is alive, then his kids are alive. Because,
right, and in the vision, he names the child.
Right. So,
right.
Did Dany stick around long enough for the mother to go, "What's this now?"
Wait, what about his brother?
How much Arbor Gold have you had? We already have a child named Aegon.
Your memory's worse than that Simon fella. So, but there is a possibility there that the child was born. This doesn't fit with the vision, but at least it fits with the child was born after Rhaegar died, and then the mother named it Aegon because she knew Aegon had already died. So, I just a thought.
The vision could be a bit abstract.
Right. And idea 2.5, that it was a daughter, same thought as previous one. Where, when, how did this child come from? Right. And if it's true that some daughter of Rhaegar is still around, how does that fit with the whole Aegon is the prince that was promised, his is the Song of Ice and Fire?
Right.
The only surviving one of the three would be this random daughter that we don't know. And again, an awfully big secret.
Yeah, so going back to your first theory that they snuck baby Aegon away because that was the easiest of the two children to get replaced with another child. In this same conversation, Jorah asks Dany, why are you listening to these warlocks anyway? The blue lips speak nothing but lies, and she was like, well, those visions were pretty realistic. And he said, what's a mummer's dragon anyway? And she explains that it's a cloth dragon in plays to give the heroes something to fight. So going with the cloth dragon imagery, along with this vision that Dany has of Rhaegar here, what if someone pretends to be the blood of the dragon but isn't, or pretends to support the Targaryens but secretly don't support them? Maybe these two things are tied into one another.
Right.
I
mean, there's no doubt about Daenerys and Viserys. They are definitely Targaryen, right? No question about that.
Right. Yes, they are. Absolutely. But we've got this, you've got this idea that maybe Aegon was taken away, but...
Well, an obvious candidate for being an unfaithful friend is Illyrio Mopatis.
Yes.
Let's see him pull a Xaro when they get to Pentos, I'd really like to marry you now.
Well, yeah, I know. I had that same thought. But so let's take Illyrio for a second. When he and... Varys were down in that dungeon that Arya was over listening to their conversation, it certainly sounded a lot like they planned on putting a Targaryen back on the throne. Mm-hmm. We assumed that was Viserys that they had in mind. Right. But what if we misunderstood? What if Aegon was switched and this Aegon is still alive? Or maybe they had planned on Viserys, but now Viserys is dead. Maybe the Mummer's dragon is they're going to try and
install a fake Aegon.
Yes.
Make up this story that we've just hypothesized and then put a fake Aegon in place.
Yes.
Interesting.
I'm just trying to work this Mummer's dragon thing into... It sounds like there's a phony dragon, and we don't believe that to be Dany. We're pretty sure Dany's legit.
Right. Unless the real Dany died in childbirth and they substituted in another perfectly Targaryen-looking child to take her place. Seems a bit far-fetched.
Right. I agree.
Yeah. But anyway, of the three things I've come up with, none of them quite passed the sniff test for me. All of them would be huge revelations. The Aegon being spirited out of there does feel like the one most likely to have occurred, but then the dragon has 3 heads points to the other thing of another child somewhere.
Right.
So...
Yes. Yeah.
Unless Aegon counts as 2 heads because he died once and now he's back again, you know.
Maybe that's it. He's 2-headed. But we get the reference to the series title in regards to Aegon. His is the name of the Song of Ice and Fire. If it's based on little Aegon and he's dead, it's kind of an odd basis for the name of the series. An unfortunate baby who was brutally murdered years before the story starts. So it makes you think maybe we're not talking about that Aegon. Right.
Yeah. I mean, there were other Aegons.
Right.
But it was definitely Rhaegar. I mean, that's the thing. She doesn't have any doubt in the vision that it was Rhaegar naming. And if Rhaegar's naming, then it's Rhaegar's child, not some historical Aegon.
I had thought about it absolutely being Rhaegar. And I thought, there's so much incest in intermarriage in that family. Maybe it's just another family member, a descendant who looks an awful lot like Rhaegar. She never even met Rhaegar. So
right. I think I don't remember the vision, but he did wear distinctive armor, right? That's the one thing.
He had that silver harp.
He had the harp with the silver
strings.
Jorah confirmed that's what he played. So yeah, but. Yeah, that's true. I mean, but then it feels like the vision's just weird. If it's just like, oh, that's your ancestor from 150 years ago.
Right.
Like Rhaegar.
That's Bob Targaryen.
Just thought we'd show you that.
Now, something we had discussed before about this whole Song of Ice and Fire thing is that could it be the dragons versus the others? That's one version of the name we thought.
Right, yes, yeah.
Or maybe Rhaegar kidnapping Lyanna and starting the events that have transpired since that happened. That kind of kicked everything off.
Hot, Lyanna cold.
Exactly. Lyanna is, from the north, and from the line of Kings of Winter, and Rhaegar being the blood of the dragon. So, those things kind of make sense as far as being ice and fire, but not necessarily baby Aegon. It's not quite clear how he fits in, that's for sure.
Yeah. So the other part of the visions that she remembers, of course, is this 3 treasons, one for blood, one for gold, and one for love. She's pretty confident that the Mirri Maz Dor one was the one for blood. And yes, I mean, Mirri Maz Dor pretty much, in her very dodgy defense of her own life, she did announce that she did it on purpose to avenge the blood that was spilled by Khal Drogo. As a statement for clemency, it lacked many of the elements she needed.
But you started it. That rarely holds up well.
So was Pyat Pri's for gold and Xaro's for love? Neither of those. She discounts it herself, and I'm kind of with her. I mean, they're both for the dragon. They have nothing to do with gold or love. They want that dragon.
I agree that it definitely the order that doesn't fit. Pri for the gold and Xaro for love doesn't fit because, Xaro certainly wasn't in love with Dany. He was pretending to be in love with Dany to get to the dragon. Right. But if you flip him around, certainly Xaro is all about the gold. He might have. I wondered actually what Xaro was going to do with this dragon. Is he going to try and ride this raise and then ride this dragon? I can't envision that. So maybe he was planning on selling it for just unfathomable amounts of money, and therefore
to someone else who would then be stuck with the same thing. Like, what the hell am I going to do with this now? I've spent my fortune on it.
Now I'm broke, and I've got a dragon that I don't know what to do with. But then I thought about, is it treason if he's just been phony the whole time? I don't know that anything he did was necessarily treasonous, unless he's been going behind her back and trying to ruin her reputation, like we talked about earlier, turning others against her. Then that would be considered treasonous, I guess.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it's worth speculating on, but it doesn't feel like. It feels like Dany has in her future a couple of very serious treasons, one for gold and one for love.
Right, I agree. I don't think we got there yet. That's for sure.
Yeah. But I do always like this motif in books of prophecies leading to their own fulfillment.
Yep.
The fact that the person knows the prophecy starts to make the chain of events happen that leads to the prophecy coming true.
Yep, they start looking she's going to start looking for treasons in every action and word of everyone around her.
Which will annoy people who will then commit treason against her.
That's right. That's how it will be fulfilled. Would you stop talking about treason? You planted the seed in my head. She spends a lot of this chapter just kind of wandering around, heading from Xaro's palace to the docks. We get a lot of description. Basically, we get to see kind of the underbelly of Qarth, the less opulent and fancy areas that she hadn't seen before. And then they make it to the docks, and she's just getting denied left and right. Which you can't. I just don't know what she's promising these people that they would take her up on this offer.
Yeah. My Dothraki and my dragons will behave impeccably.
Right. Can I pay you? No. But we will work.
I will pay you in not burning down your ship
right.
and stealing all your wealth.
But eventually she gets into this scene where she's haggling with this brass seller over a brass platter that she and Jorah are using to look at the people that are following them behind them, using it as a mirror. And she turns and she's planning on confronting the two people that are following her. But this brass salesman just won't give up. So Jorah goes to pay the brass salesman. And when he's not paying attention, this Qartheen man gives Dany a box. And she's like, oh, wow, this will actually help me pay for some of my ships. And so without thinking, she opens it, and inside is a manticore that would have stung her, except for that this man with the white hair and beard uses his staff and smacks it from her hands and then kills it, which is kind of a necessary move, I guess. It's the best way to get Dany to trust these two, by having one of them save her life.
Well, yes. So are you attributing that to George Martin or to Belwas and Arston?
A little bit of both.
Okay.
It's a good vehicle of bringing these two parties together in a positive way, but also maybe it was them that sent the.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
The man.
Can I just interject with? If you've been fleeing your whole life, the daggers of the usurper always.
I know where you're going. I know where you're going with this.
If some rando gives you a box that might contain something deadly, and Ser Jorah just happens to not be looking, now's my chance.
Yes, I know. Yeah. I thought about that. I thought maybe she was distracted by thinking that these two men that are following her are the danger, and was just like, ooh, this looks nice.
Shiny.
Opened it right up. But at the along those same lines, how did Arston know that the box was bad news? Was there something that tipped him off?
It was probably a Qartheen person giving her something.
Could have been that.
The clues were all there. The Qartheen have given her nothing, and what they've given her, they're asking for back.
Right. Yeah, I guess Jorah probably would have not allowed her to open that box if he had not been distracted by paying the brass salesman.
Jorah would have smashed that box to 1,000,000 pieces with his sword, and then looked what was inside it and said, oops, sorry, that did look pretty.
Oops, nothing in there. You're fine. So Dany mentions that no one else, well, no, I shouldn't say no one else. Jorah didn't see this Qartheen man. And Aggo and Jogo, everybody kind of, Aggo, Jogo, and Jorah all kind of pounce on these two new arrivals who have been following them, and they think that it was them that had hurt Dany because she hurt her hand. Her hand got snapped in the box when the lid closed.
Did it? That's not how I read it. I read it as Arston's staff hit her hand to knock the box out of her
Maybe
hand.
it was that. Yeah,
That's
it could
what
have been that too.
Yeah.
But Dany says, no, he saved my life. It was the Qartheen man. He was a sorrowful man. And she wasn't just saying that he said, I'm so sorry, because that's what the man says. I'm so sorry after he hands her the box. He is a member.
It's lovely.
He is a member of the Sorrowful Men, which is a group of assassins here in Qarth, and they always say, I am so sorry, before they kill their victims. So that's why she called him a sorrowful man. We actually heard about them when Dany uselessly bribed those three pureborn, and she thought of sending Jorah to recollect payment, since they didn't do anything at all. And Xaro said, maybe a sorrowful man will come kill you if you do that. So that's where we've heard about
she
them
sent
before.
Ser Jorah to get her money back. When Xaro left, she was like, no, go ahead and do it.
Yeah, just do it.
So who sent him? I mean, yes, there's definitely a possibility it was these two people to set up a situation where they could save her life.
Right. Be the heroes.
The manticore didn't actually sting anybody, so maybe it didn't have any poison.
Right. It's a good point. Yeah, and he killed it, so he didn't give anyone a chance to inspect it. So, yes.
But more, I mean, that's not unrealistic, but the warlocks obviously have got it in for her.
Right.
It seems a bit conventional to just send an assassin, but I mean, I think a manticore is a magical beast, so I do think there's a bit of magic here which could point to the warlocks.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that aspect of the manticore being a magical beast until you brought it up, because I was thinking the same thing, that's sending an assassin seems rather mundane for a group of warlocks, especially considering what they did to Mathos Malarowan's wife with the spell that she can't wear clothes because she mocked their clothes. And then they're just like, just go hire one of the sorrowful men. We got other things to do.
Right. But give him this, which will, I don't know, make her always smell like horses or something. She'll never marry.
So you said you had other options. Who else? It
was just Belwys and.
Okay.
That was my other option.
Do you think it could possibly have been Xaro?
What's in it for Xaro? I mean, I suppose he could keep the dragons somehow.
Right. The dragons are currently in his palace. If she dies, they might just stay right there.
Oh, well, then yes. I had visions of them being with her at this point, but no, that's right. She didn't have them with her, so yeah. That makes Xaro a very good candidate. In fact, that makes me think, why wasn't she keeping her dragons with her at all times?
Right. Yeah.
Because I was going to say, I assume she was keeping her dragons with her at all times, and therefore the right place for Xaro to kill her is in his home, yes. Where he can kill her and keep the dragons.
Couldn't that seneschal just drop off that box and then leave? And then Dany would open it? And...
Will you please not open this until I'm out of the room?
Right. Yeah, it's just Xaro, he's certainly feeling spurned and taken advantage of and unappreciated, which is all BS, of course, because he willingly did all of these things, all of the things that have been done for her. She didn't ask for any of it. She's asked for a bunch of favors, but not the gifts and, the use of his house. He volunteered all that. But anyway, now he's not getting the dragons, which I think is the ultimate thing that he's disappointed in. So I'm just thinking maybe he's thinking, the dragons are in my possession right now, and there's only Recaro guarding them. I think all my men could probably take one Recaro if need be.
Yeah. So who are these two new helpers? It is a bit convenient that they arrive just at the right moment to foil the assassination. It's certainly it's the quick way into her inner circle if you save her life.
Right. Yes.
So they are perhaps cuckoos planted to spy on her, but they say they come from Illyrio, which we basically trust them, Illyrio, to be on Dany's side. He gave her the dragon eggs. I mean, he's looked after her to this point. So maybe they paid for a fake assassination attempt. Like I said, it wasn't a real, deadly weapon that they could foil that and thus prove their bona fides. But I don't know.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. It's a little bit suspicious, especially one of them being from Westeros. I don't think we've mentioned this, but Arston says he was born in the Dornish Marches and squired for a knight from House Swan. And you did mention that he's familiar with Ser Jorah.
Ser Jorah, yeah.
And
Ser Jorah recognizes him, can't quite place him, but he's familiar to him. So
yeah. But so you were saying, Illyrio seems to be on the up and up, and I guess he does. But Strong Belwas says that Illyrio wants the dragons and the girl who makes them. That's maybe he wasn't supposed to word it that way.
Right.
I
said to come visit me.
Right.
You made it sound like I was going to murder them.
She's kind of, in some ways, she's become like an A-list celebrity. Like, she'll never know whether people are interested in her for who she is or interested in her for what she has, which are these three dragons. And like we were talking about before, last time we heard from Illyrio, he was talking with Varys about this Targaryen reemergence plan in Westeros. And then we were just talking a little bit ago about how maybe their plan is, well, Viserys is dead, so let's just make this guy, we'll dress this guy up like a Targaryen. If you have those dragons, it certainly would help his
and
actually,
case. There's a nice thing here with Dany having the dragons is you could marry this faux Targaryen to Dany,
right?
Because that's not exactly frowned on,
right?
And, the problem might come then if the dragons are like, who's this guy?
Right.
We like her.
Not so much.
What happens if we breathe fire on you?
Right. Because fire doesn't kill a dragon.
Right.
So let's just test that. But, it does make, as I'm saying all that, why wouldn't Dany be good enough for them? Why would they feel the need to go out and find a pretender instead of just Dany? Is it because since she's a woman, they don't think that the realm will embrace her as much, and therefore they would need a male heir?
Maybe they're putting multiple irons in the fire here.
Yeah.
Maybe it's, she's very vulnerable. She almost died in the Red Wastes. She's, they just want to have fallback in case she doesn't make it.
Yeah, that could be. Yeah. And of course, we don't know that Illyrio is not on the up and up. I just thought that the wording from Strong Belwas that he wants the dragons and the girl. Oh, and the girl who makes them. Yeah. And the girl who makes them.
Well, I think didn't Dany herself have some insight into Illyrio when Viserys was talking about Illyrio? I think she saw through him a little bit. He cared about profit. He cared about being on the right side of these things.
Yes, and he was telling Viserys what he thought Viserys wanted to hear, of course, too. Right. Yeah, I remember that.
So she's headed to Pentos. I'm not sure that gets her any closer to having an army, but it is physically closer to Westeros than she currently is.
True.
Yeah, but it is then kind of strange that she's had this journey to Qarth. It seemed like it was destiny. She followed the comet. She survived the Red Waste. She found the 3 Qarthines when she got through the desert, and then nothing happened in Qarth.
Nothing. Yes, right.
Yeah, I mean,
nothing really advanced.
Yeah,
saw some visions. Got some cryptic warnings and advice from Qarth. So, yeah, right. It seems like she's leaving without a whole lot of gain from what seemed like this was a really important journey that she followed this comet here.
Yeah. And I think I'm right in saying this is the last Dany chapter of Clash of Kings. So it's weird how central she was to Game of Thrones and how Clash of Kings, not much has happened to her. She's had some privations that she's come through. She's tried to get help that she has been refused, and there she is.
There she is.
She's heading back to where she was in chapter 1 of the book.
She'll be back in Illyrio Mopatis's manse
Yeah.
with 3 dragons, though. I wonder how quickly Illyrio is going to regret inviting those dragons into his home.
It does make you wonder how much control she has. I mean, she worked with Drogon to destroy the House of the Undying, but I mean, like, is that just because she happened to say Dracarys when he burned the House of the Undying? Does he often just burn things for the heck of it, and then she says Dracarys immediately afterwards, as if she was in control?
That was me. I did that. Oh, one thing I wanted to mention. Back when we were talking about Arstan and Sir Strong Belwas, when Arstan says that he recognizes Jorah from the tourney when he in Lannisport when he almost unseated Jaime Lannister, he's talking about that tourney at Lannisport that Jorah won when King Robert named him victor after breaking 9 lances against Jaime.
Oh, yeah.
That's the one when he crowned Lenise Hightower the Queen of Love and Beauty, and then won her hand in marriage. And
she's the one who he broke the rules in order to keep happy and ended up banished for.
Yes, exactly. Wow. So
these things all come around.
That's what Arstan is talking about. That's the tourney that, is one of those is like the high point of Ser Jorah's life, but also the undoing of Ser Jorah's life. So
do you have some background for us?
I do. I'm going to talk about some info that does come up that I got from future books in this series, which I don't usually do. Usually I try to keep it to the reference book so that we don't spoil anything. But since we're only talking about descriptions here and we don't get them for quite a while, I'm going to do it anyway. And if you don't already know what I'm going to talk about, you'll probably have forgotten it by the time we get there. So
we are the masters of our own domain here. You can just do it. They can always not listen.
So, Xaro Xhoan Daxos mentions that the glass candles are burning again in the house of Urathon Nightwalker. And by the way, Urathon Nightwalker, there's some theories out there that he might be a certain character who we meet later. Another name for a certain character that we will meet later. I don't know. I read the theories. I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. Anyway, unlike many of the unusual events that Xaro mentions, there is a bit of additional info on these glass candles. Now here's a quick description of the candles. They're tall, twisted, with sharp edges. So not anything like what you'd find at a Yankee candle store or any of those, kind of candle stores in the mall. And they're said to give off a bright light that does strange things to colors. For instance, whites become as bright as freshly fallen snow. Yellows shine like gold. Reds turn to flame. And shadows become so black that they look like holes in the world. Which sound an awful lot like the descriptions that they tell you about the newest televisions.
I was just going to say the same thing. I was going to say exactly the same thing. I said, it sounds like you're trying to sell me on a TV that I can't afford.
Right.
That's too funny.
It's also said that when the glass candles are burning, sorcerers can see across mountains and seas and deserts, and they give men visions and dreams, and that through the candles, people can communicate with each other regardless of their location. So kind of like FaceTime. It's basically FaceTime. Also, the night before an acolyte of the Citadel says his vows, he has to stand vigil in a vault with nothing but 3 black candles and no other light source. He has to spend the night in the darkness unless he can manage to light these candles. And apparently the point of this ritual is to show that even with all the knowledge he's acquired, there's still some things that are impossible. Well, at least until now.
I see. Interesting. So, comparison with the television show, this just doesn't happen. Her sundering from Xaro is much more abrupt than this, and she steals from him to buy a ship to get her out of Qarth. And I don't want to say too much more in case that ends up being in the next Dany chapter, which is in the next book, so I didn't read that far ahead to find out where the spoilers were.
Right.
She will eventually in the TV show meet the protectors that she just met in this chapter, but that hasn't happened yet in the TV show, so I'm keeping stum on that.
All right.
Pedantry Corner. This is pretty pedantic to bring this up, but the very first sentence of this chapter is that she's eating shrimp and persimmon soup cold for breakfast. Now, I know this woman chowed down on a raw horse's heart, but this is too much.
Her palate is definitely open to experiment.
That sounds revolting on so many levels. Oh, for breakfast. Sorry, just being pedantic. Okay, so news and notes. We had our first live video chat with some of our listeners.
That was fun. That was fun.
It really was. It was so nice to meet them. It was exclusive to the Discord members, so get on Discord. Going forward, we are going to have those for our monthly sustainers. But yeah, I mean, couldn't have been nicer to meet the people who came, and it was really a lot of fun.
It really was. It was cool meeting everybody, and just seeing. We got to see some of the people's faces, and of course we had our cameras on, so unfortunately they got stuck looking at us.
They got the disappointment of meeting us.
We had one of our listeners, Genevieve, was on from Australia, where it was the next morning. We did it 7:00 Eastern time, US time, and she was on She was on the next morning. It was 9 a.m. in Australia.
She was speaking to us from the future.
Yes, she was there from the next day. But so that that's something we're planning on doing for our monthly sustainers on our Buy Me a Coffee site. So if you're interested in future joining us in the future, go check that out and consider being a sustainer. And we are also excited and proud to announce that we are official sponsors of the Ice and Fire Con, held at Deer Creek Lodge in Mount Sterling, Ohio, April 21st through the 24th of 2022. It is the largest convention of its kind in the U.S. So
I've seen the website with our logo on it. It's very exciting.
It's very cool. Very cool to see us there. And I wish we're going this year. Maybe we'll be there next year.
Yeah, we'll definitely try to be there next year as well. I always read these out. Why don't you read this one out, Mackelly? I get the joy of reading out the nice reviews we get. Have this one.
All right. Well, we got a wonderful review from a listener who goes by Nutmeg Owl. This came from Apple Podcasts, and the subject is Insights Among Friends. I so enjoyed joining Simon and Mackelly for their not rambling breakdowns of each chapter of A Song of Ice and Fire. I like that description there. No bro speak. Two adult friends, parents like me, who share observations without theorizing over the placement of every comma and what it might foreshadow. Also, I appreciate the non-spoiler policy. Though I watched A Game of Thrones, I am new to the books and know they're different. These are gents I'd love to have a pot of coffee with in real life.
All right. Make it happen, Nutmeg Owl. Become a sustainer and you can join us for a virtual coffee at least.
That's right. Yes, thank you.
But that's
was a great
really
review.
Nice. Yeah, that's a true.
I get giddy when I see such reviews like this.
Yeah. All right, let's draw a line under this one. So Dany's story at least has gained some forward momentum. Like I said, she was central to Game of Thrones, but it's been quiet in Clash of Kings.
It really has.
There's only so many ways you can describe the privations of being thirsty.
Right.
Becomes repetitive after a while.
She went to the House of the Undying to get answers, but came back with more questions, which is basically what happened. That was basically her experience in Qarth to begin with. She thought she was following, she thought this was some prophetic journey following the comet. And, it turned out to be a bunch of dead ends and basically a city, as she put it, that will never give you as much as it promises that it could give you. But I thought, speaking of the riddles and mysteries she got at the House of the Undying, I kind of got a kick out of her and Jorah discussing what they meant, because I'm pretty sure I've read plenty of Reddit threads that basically were the same conversation. What does this mean? I don't know. What do you think it means? I think it means this. What do you mean? You think it means that? I think it means this.
She did get confirmation that Robert is dead and the ensuing turmoil in Westeros. So there's an opportunity here for her, but does she have yet what she needs to stake her claim? Maybe with Illyrio's help, she does.
Maybe. Not right now, without his help. She's got 3 baby dragons and 100 Khalasar of Dothraki.
Who don't want to get on this ship, these ships she's going to rename.
Yes, right. Yeah, you're not going to take Westeros with 3 ships of
and 100 seasick Dothraki.
Right.
Now she has a destination in mind and some new helpers, although are they all that they seem to be? It is rather trusting to go off with these guys, but the box giver made them seem legit. Or was part of the team.
Right. They wouldn't be the first person to try and make them look like a hero by setting up a staged attack or robbery or something.
And the dragons are obviously her greatest strength, but for now they're still small and vulnerable, and they have the unfortunate side effect of boosting the enemy's magic too. So
yes.
There's always a price to be paid for magic.
That's a good point. Yeah, I hadn't thought about how that could be problematic for her because, as her dragons grow, you wonder if the magic will continue to grow along, equally along with them. Yeah. But, and she's once again fleeing, which just seems to be what she does to this point. She's constantly on the move, a guest in someone's house. They wear out their welcome and then have to leave. So,
yeah, but in her case, it was mostly her Dothraki and her unwillingness to marry Xaro, not her obnoxiousness.
Right. She didn't leave toenail clippings around Xaro's palace or anything like that.
But I tell you what, whatever Strong Belwas and Arsten's story is, it's a great result for her. 3 ships to Pentos, taking her and all her Khalasar without any problems. It's
absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, Illyrio Mormont is doing everything he can for her, whatever his motives.
Yeah, it's absolutely the best. She could not have planned a better offer than what she got. She, an old friend is offering to escort her, give her the ships that she wants, free of charge. Apparently, at least as far as she knows right now, it's free of charge. He tells her that they need her on the throne, which is exactly what she wants to hear. And it sounds like maybe he's going to invest in helping her be successful with getting on the throne. So, but then again, things that seem too good to be true often are. So
very true, very true.
But he did give her those eggs. So,
Did. If I were Illyrio, I would always mention that.
Yes.
They were my eggs first, remember? There are 3 ways that you can help us. If you could leave us a positive review, nothing helps spread the word better than that. We'd appreciate that. You can buy some merch at ghostsofharrenhal.threadless.com. You can buy us a cup of Arbor Gold or become a sustainer at www.buymeacoffee.com/ghostsharrenhal.
That's right. And as always, you can reach us at ghost.harrenhal@gmail.com. Please go out and follow us on Twitter at @GhostHarrenhal. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Discord, and YouTube.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.